9th of July 2020. My dear Laura, I was so pleased to get your long letter last Tuesday. It was such a nice surprise. I think it is such a shame that in these days of emails and messaging, letter writing is being lost. What will future historians do? I have got many family letters dating back to my grandfather's, Archie Bowie's time, which I greatly value, and they give such an insight into their thoughts and feelings of the time. I should be very pleased to help in any way I can with research into our family history and colonial aspects. My grandfather, William Mebbles, was the first of our family to work in the colonies. He, William, was one of 6 children. When he was in his teens, he was an assistant in the brewery. Unemployment was severe in Devon in the 1880s, so I guess he would have been delighted when he was offered the post as an overseer on the sugar estates of the Quinton Hog family in British Guiana. He was on an estate named Nonpareil, spelling may be wrong, near Georgetown on the East Coast. He would have been about 18 or 20 when he went out. Grandfather married his boss's sister, Kate Garnett. After they were married in Georgetown Cathedral, he was then offered the opportunity to transfer to Mauritius, where the Hoggs also had sugar estates. They lived on an estate named Beauséjour, where my father and his brothers were born. When my father left school, he took up an apprenticeship with an engineering firm in Leeds. He found he hated this, so my grandfather, who by that time was a director of the Anglo Ceylon and General Estates Company Ltd, said he could get him a planting job with the company in either Mauritius or Ceylon, but he advised Ceylon, as the social life was much better. So my father went out to Ceylon after a year at the Royal Agricultural College in Cirencester in 1924. With much love, from Grandpa. 23rd of September 2020. My dear Laura, I'm sorry to see it's been so long since I received your long letter dated 27th of July. Before the Second World War, it was quite usual for people to go out into the Empire colonies and also to move between colonies. I should think that most families in England would have had a member in the colonies or knew of someone who had a colonial job. I'm sure that the sugar estates in British Guiana must have employed slave labour. However, after slavery was abolished in the British Empire in 1833, they would have been employed under some other arrangement, which perhaps would not have been very much better. Of course, nearly all nations employed slaves up to the mid-19th century, including African tribes and particularly the Arabs. Grandfather William was always trying to improve the social standing of the family and became a JP in British Guiana, so presumably had to administer the labour laws, which, even 60 years after abolition, may have been harsh. I sometimes wonder whether this may have been a factor in his choosing to move to Mauritius. The colonies attracted a lot of poorer people from the UK, especially Scots, because they could have a much better life in the colonies, and there were many opportunities for making money and escaping from the British class system, although the colonial class system could be just as bad. It seems fashionable these days, especially on TV, to decimate all aspects of British Empire and colonial history. But I believe that in many ways the empire did a lot of good, keeping to the peace, developing countries, and educating populations. And I do wonder how people would have fared without colonization. Were the Mughal emperors any better? If the Zulu had had power, would they have behaved any better than their Bantu neighbours? I think that many British colonies were quite well administered and certainly much better than many have been after independence. Look at Zimbabwe, the Sudan, and even South Africa. Lots of love from Grandpa. Dear Grandpa, nice to hear from you. I won't lie, it can be pretty difficult to hear all that you have to say about our family and your views on the British Empire. I have now lived for a year on Tupi land in Brazil, for a year on Wampanoag land here in Boston, and for a couple of months on Tonga and Chumash land in California. I flew from Liverpool to Boston. I see my probably the most colonial route that ever existed. I know that you came out of that harbour many times on your way to Sri Lanka and to Australia. That it is the same language. I can't help but feeling like I'm perpetuating and repeating our family's history. I'm sure you probably don't see that as a bad thing, but I do. I know we have been brought up in different times and our beliefs are different, but I cannot succumb to yours. You give examples of countries which have not fared well after independence. but you don't admit that the seeds of most of what has happened lie in colonialism. You say that criticising the British Empire is a trend or a fad, but I have to tell you that it's not. People have finally been given platforms to speak about the enduring chaos of colonialism and a place that invades your sense of self and security. So you dismiss it as a fashion. I understand that. These are your childhood memories, the stories of your parents and your first job, how you met your wife even. I can't imagine what it is like to be told that every early memory that you hold dear is tainted with racism and pain. But what I do know is that for every youth having their world disassembled around them, there are 2, 3, 4 descendants of colonized people who might be able to begin breathing and living freely because of this criticism and education. It seems that your side of the story is sealed, but I'm determined not to continue that legacy. I know what side of the story I want to be on, because colonialism is going to be as much a story of my lifetime as it was of yours. I'm hopefully looking forward to seeing you at Christmas. I don't really know what will be possible, but yeah, I'm looking forward to being home. Lots of love from Laura.